The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Monday in the Riv, and we begin our second round of talks with
It's not Monday.
Oh, what is it? It's Wednesday. I'm sorry.
It's Wednesday. You had a retirement board meeting today, and you don't even know what day it is.
You know what it is? Because we didn't have anybody. We had Mr. Avila on Monday. Yeah, it shows what a difficult meeting that was this morning. I can't even remember what day it was. So, you know, I mean, it was like, okay. So it's Wednesday. It's Hump Day. Even better since I'm half camel. So. That's good, and we begin our second round where we're going to get into a little bit more detail on their positions. And with us today, drawn by lot by special ping pong ball from CJ's
from our debate.
Our debate ping pong balls. We have former school committeeman, former city councilor, and candidate for mayor, Kyle Riley. Welcome, Kyle.
Glad to be first, as always.
Yeah. Yeah. And, well, you know, if you want to make a short, brief statement, it's fine, and then we'll get into a little bit of question and answer, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, I've told you about myself already here on this show and in several other places around the city. I'm working hard. We have a short period of time left. Really, the message is, you know, watch the debates, watch shows like this as we get our voice out, and let credibility go where it is. And I think you'll hear from different candidates, different platforms. I've thought mine out. I've been involved in the city for quite some time, both in the community and elected office. And I ask you to vote yes on the recall and vote for Kyle Riley, and I'll ask you again at the end. Great.
Okay. And we'll get right down to it then. And I hope everybody out there, as we always encourage, went out there and on everybody's websites and check their websites and check their platforms, because an educated voter is an intelligent voter. We don't want to, you know, and we don't want to get into the sound bites. You know, we understand that in debates you're kind of constricted, but you know. That's why we chose this format, to get into a little bit more detail. So I looked over your site, and I looked over your mailings, which I received, and just going to let you expand a little bit and ask you a few questions on one of the things you spoke about was prioritizing the investments in the public schools. So could you give us a little overview of how and specifics of how you feel that you know, the investments, certain investments will maximize our educational dollar?
Sure, a great topic for me to start out with. I've been an educator for quite some time, and really promoted through the system as I grew as an educator, which I think is important. I think I've learned at every time I got promoted to the next position up and was handling larger and larger budgets, that it wasn't just about money. One of the most important things is what you do with that money. So we can increase minimum net school spending. I think that's wonderful. I support that. But what are we doing with the money at the end of the day? Are our scores reflective of spending more money and attaching them right to the student? When I make a budget for either special education or help the superintendents I've worked with to build budgets within the system, we really did plan out a one-year budget, 5-year, and beyond sometimes, and really target our spending to the end goal. So many times we wait and see which way the wind blows in education and in city politics, and we just go with money in that direction. I would like to focus on what's the end goal, working with the school committee, the superintendent, and how do we get there? How do we support you with that? Because throwing money at any problem is not the answer to it. It's making sure that we streamline our goals.
Well, yeah, that's a, you know, and I agree. You know, we've always contended that one of government's biggest problems is their answer is always to throw money at it. Mm-hmm. And we see, and I have a lot of people telling me, we see, you know, our school budget going up, we see a lot of administrative positions, but we see our classrooms getting larger, our educational attainment getting not getting any better, actually in many cases getting worse, and they're looking for specific answers and specific investments. And I know, obviously, you would have to look over the budget, but is there anything that sticks out to you as you look at an overview? Because what I see is a lack of investment in classroom teaching and in giving children learning time. You know, I see a lot of money going to deans of students and these euphemistic positions that they create that carry big salaries. And I even see the current superintendent of schools talking about hiring more people to oversee the overseers. And I just want to know what your view is on that.
Yeah, I give you two specifics right away. One is a good portion of any budget, and for it's over 20%, is special education, which is my background. You really can control special education costs by building good programming within your district, by bringing kids back into the district, not only for financial reasons, but also to bring them back in the community and be with their neighborhood kids, because we want to educate our kids here in Fall River. We don't want to send them anywhere else, and when we do, it's expensive. So bringing that in is a good way to control those costs and make sure kids get what they need. The other piece is something you probably wouldn't think of right away, is teacher retention. So having 6 kids, and now the 4th and 5th one are in Durfee, and 3 graduated already. Every one of my children have had good opportunities in front of them, taken advantage of those opportunities, but they've also had times, when I say times, I mean big gaps where they didn't have a teacher, and there was a sub for the 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and they're not getting educated, they're getting worksheets from a substitute teacher. That's not education. So how do we fix that gap? And it really is communicating, making sure that we make connections with the colleges that are around, businesses around. I went up to New Bedford and talked to Leslie University, the DeMello International Center, and they're doing a program in coordination with New Bedford Public Schools that would support a couple of things. One, it would support teachers who have credits already, who want to finish up and get their masters. They would take community college students who want to get that undergraduate degree, can transfer up to 90 credits, which is a pretty big number, and it's at reduced fees. They also work with parents to help parents help their children at home, which brings everybody up. And so I think making those connections that are not a cost to the city per se, would be a cost to the individual, but would be at a reduced cost, helps everybody. So there's ways within the school system to really save some money, and those are 2 specific ways. Make sure there's a teacher in front of your child every day, and make sure that our costs that we can control, we are controlling.
Well, obviously this is in your wheelhouse, Cal, so and obviously, as we know, everything is a work in progress. Once you actually, if you are elected, you will have to look very in depth at what we have, and I know that that's a difficult thing. But education obviously is a priority. It's a building block in our city to maintain, to keep our people here and to get them a better education, give them a better opportunity to job. So that's an extremely big issue, and it's an extremely big ticket item. Obviously, it's a tremendously expensive thing, and you know, as a taxpayer, we want to get the best bang for our buck. And next thing, I'm working off your mailing here first. You're talking about ethics reform at the government center. Could you give us a little bit more detail on that? Because as we said, you know, sound bites are easy. You know, I'm for public safety. I'm for mom and apple pie. I'm for ethics reform. Well, what are your, you know, what's your kind of master plan to deal with the issues of ethics and proper behavior in a city government, especially in the government center?
I think the best thing we can do is always be transparent, and I see that lacking right now with this administration. I see it lacking with coordination when something goes down to the council, with city council. I see it lacking when they come down and talk about, we may have another plan for the Maplewood Park parcels that we may want to purchase, but it's secret right now. That we're not hearing what we should be hearing as citizens. And so that in itself is ethical. You're keeping something back that people in government and citizens need to hear to move forward with. But I think once you start that conversation and making sure we're transparent and making sure that we're following the code of working together in collaboration, then other things fall in place. It goes as far as oversight of new streets and sidewalks to make sure those are done ethically. We're signing off knowing that we're looking at a project that we've paid for as citizens of this city, and that we know that it's been checked into, that it's been signed off on, and we can move to the next project. Not projects that are given out to our friends, our relatives, or anyone else that we may know because it benefits us personally or them personally. There needs to be a priority list of what we do, both in construction, in street repair, in sidewalk repairs. One of the big ones I hear all over the place that people can't get their sidewalks done, but yet we see other sidewalks getting done in certain parts of the city. Were they a priority, and why were they a priority?
Good. Yeah. Well, obviously that's one of our issues on our show all the time, and along that line, as the mayor, would you demand, I'm using the word demand because I really truly believe it should be demanded, that department heads and people who are commissioned to have a job to give us, the taxpayer and the city council, accurate information. When they appear and are questions, we get accurate information, because as we have seen, and this is not something that isn't attainable, because as you well know, I've dealt with a lot of city administrators and a lot of financial teams. And I remember a time when Bob Connors went before the city council, and I can't ever remember him not being prepared, not having the numbers at his fingertips, not having accurate numbers, not having an answer to a question.
And usually off the top of his head.
And off the top of his head, yeah. Because he was always, and even his successor when he left, Jim Smith. We always had department heads who went in front of the council and had answers. We had city administrators and that had answers, and I see that sorely lacking. And these people have gotten incredible pay raises, and they're getting incredible money, which gets us back to that thing of what would seem to be doing. If somebody isn't doing their job, we give them a pay raise and hire somebody else to help them do the job. And I just want to know that, what is your philosophy as mayor? Are you going to hold these people's feet to the fire?
I am, and I have an approach I may have mentioned last time we were on the show, or I may not have. Over 20 some odd years, I've been supervising, mostly in education, but other places as well. And it's my expectations are high. I'm pretty clear cut with it. This is where we need to be. If someone's not there, that's a conversation I have with them. And so how do I help you get there? Because you need to be transparent. You need to be accountable to citizens. You need to be accountable to the administration. But I want you to be honest. And if that's all it is, everybody can be honest, right? If you're having difficulty doing your job and you need support to do that, I can support you to do that job. If I'm coming to support you the third and fourth time and you're making no progress at all, then we need to make changes. I'm not someone who's going to sit here and say, this person's going if I get elected, this person's going. What I am going to say is I'm going to assess everything as I walk in the door, and people are going to be held accountable with high expectations. We ask our citizens every year to pay more money and more money and more money, and yet we don't up the game on our side of it. So we need to up the game on our side, make sure we're transparent, make sure our expectations are high for our own staff. And I truly think the staff in City Hall will feel better about that as well. There's nothing to hide. There's nothing, I might say the wrong thing, or I might do the wrong thing. Do your job, and we're going to be okay.
Well, that sounds like a plan, but we've seen this go on and on and on, and we get in there and we see the same old. As you said, you're not going to say this person's going and that person's going, and some people may say that. Some people are already saying that they're going to eliminate this position and that position, but that gets me to a question. Do you, as someone who's lived in this city his whole life, as someone who is an administrator, as someone who knows what it takes to run things, I'm sure you remember a time when we had far more firefighters, police officers, students than we have today, and we did not have CFOs and COOs and financial offices and all these tiers of people to run a city that actually has fewer employees and services fewer people and fewer students. So, you know, when we walk out, and CJ and I walk out in the street, we hear people saying that, you know, every time I open my tax bill, every time I get a fee, it's increased. But all I see is more chiefs, no Indians, and I don't see any progress. They don't seem to be doing the job better. They seem to be doing the job worse. And I mean, there has to be, at least in their opinion, there has to be something to go back to that leaner form of government, no frills government. I mean, this is not a business. It's not. It's in a business of providing services to the people, and we're not a profit-making organization. So we should be only spending money where it's doing the public good. And I just want to know, you know, and I know you can't be specific, but in your opinion, do we have a little bit or a lot more bureaucracy than we need at this point in time?
It's really hard to say, and I say that because I'm trying to just always be honest. I'm not trying to get a quick soundbite.
Yeah.
But you take a job like the chief of staff, right? And so the chief of staff has resigned to campaign for the mayor. So there was a stipend put out this year to make more money because she needed to do that for snow removal last year, and now hasn't worked for a few months, and we haven't replaced that position. So it makes you ponder the question, is the position needed? Is the whole position needed? How could we restructure that office to make sure that we're being as efficient, as you said, as efficient a government as we can be? Maybe it is needed. Maybe it's just not being utilized the right way. So it's looking at those positions and making sure that people get the best bang for their buck. That could be any department, though. I think, you know, as many mayors do, if I was to be elected, I would have a transition team to go in to take a look at each department, but really not a long, drawn-out process. What's there? How efficient are we? Let's do a performance audit and make sure that we're being as efficient as we can. Because to your point, we got to go back to the people and say, this is the government we're running for you. It's not lazy. It's not missing. It's not, you know, ill-informed. It's not you're coming in to get some kind of permit and nobody's in the office at that time. We just have to be better in our efficiencies with that kind of stuff. Can we categorize this day as for this, so someone will always be in the office at this hours, so our builders and those kind of people can come in and they can go back to the work site when needed. So looking at those kind of things through a performance audit would be helpful, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you know, I have to kind of press you a little bit on that one. Sure. Because obviously, as I said, we had far more students, far more firefighters, far more city employees decades ago. Yet we've adopted this federal government kind of thing where the mayor needs a cabinet, and there is talk right now about going to a Type E charter. And in reality, and I know you always give an honest answer, but in your heart of hearts, do you truly believe that a mayor, a city of this size, with department heads that are being paid to run every single department, that with a city administrator, now we have a financial officer, we have an auditor, a treasurer, and all these other positions, tier upon tier upon tier, most of whom have assistants and people who work under them? Do you truly believe that the mayor needs a chief of staff when we know the evolution of that came from a secretary who he was looking to give a pay raise to? So it's like calling a janitor a sanitary engineer so you could give him a giant raise. Do you truly believe that the mayor of the city of Fall River, a city like this, with all these other positions that should be basically self-sustaining and self-running, do you truly believe the mayor needs a virtual cabinet to run this city?
I don't think needs. I think, again, it depends on what those positions are doing. So if the position is there so the mayor can be somewhere else, then that's not efficiency, right? I also think as I go to these neighborhood groups and I start to talk to people within the community, they consistently tell me about, are you going to re-engage the neighborhood groups? Because we used to have somebody under Will Flanagan, and that's probably the last time that there was a position or someone just dedicated to that, coming to meetings, making sure that we're heard from the streets. And so to reduce anything without making sure people are all set out in the community, I wouldn't want to do that. I go back to that audit piece only because in a performance audit, you'll say these are the things that are lacking. These are places we're missing the mark. We're going to reduce a position down and say, okay, we're still missing the mark on these. Who can pick that up after we just reduce something? So for me, it would be what's missing. If everybody's being efficient in the position, are we getting where we need to go, and can we reduce a position? Then it's time to do that. But I really do think you don't want to take something right away and then find out we could have better used that position for something else.
I have to jump in here,
Okay.
Chip.
I forgot you were there, CJ.
No, I'm here. I hear you focusing, you just focused on that neighborhood liaison that was here. That was held by, I believe it was John Perry.
Perry Long.
Excuse me. Perry Long. And that was a CDA position. It was paid for out of CDA. But the neighborhood leaders at that time said, we don't need somebody to do this. We just need the capability to discuss these items with the mayor directly. Because it was just a layer of motions to go through. It was a big buffer to get to the mayor. And people were saying, I used to talk to the mayor before this position came around. So was the position, and would positions like that exist in your administration? Because we have a lot of those positions now where they're buffers. Or you've got Monica Souza right now who follows the mayor everywhere, and she acts as a buffer. You want to meet with the mayor, you got to go through Monica. Everything's got to go through Monica. And she's a special assistant. Now the special assistant position was created under Sam Sutter for somebody he brought from the DA's office, and to give him a job that paid a specific amount of money, and it did pay that money. Now, I like that individual. He was a nice guy, but he was a buffer. It was just another buffer, and the position really didn't do anything except tell the mayor so-and-so wants to meet with you and get paid $70,000 a year. Right now, Monica's, I think, getting $60,000. Plus, she's getting a $10,000 stipend for what we don't know. But that's the big problem we have. They're constantly laying stipend after stipend after stipend to create more buffers so we can't get to people. And then when we ask about these, for information on these positions and contracts and everything else, we get, I don't have those numbers today. What are you going to do to stop that? What are you going to do to stop that? Because that's important to the people of Fall River. When they watch a city council meeting and the city administrator and the chief financial officers ask, how much is this contract going to cost the city? And they say, I don't have the money. I may not have the number of how much the money is. How can you sign a contract and you don't know how much it's going to cost? So what do? We need this truth. We need truthfulness, and we're not getting it. What is your administration going to do to bring that out?
So two questions within there that I see. One is the transparency that we talked about already. I think that's as simple as that. It's communication and transparency. My administration wouldn't be going down to the city council floor, number one, before meeting with the councilors, but number two, without the information that everybody needs to do their job. Your other piece about the buffer, I do not need a buffer in any situation. But again, back to my point, not to beat a dead horse, is I want to make sure that people are efficient. So if you're saying, and everything you just said is true about that position, and she's there to follow the mayor around and be a buffer, then that's not a position that we need. Could that position be something else, though, to support a department, the citizens of the city? Could it be something else that would be more efficient to make government run better? I'd never need a buffer. I'm out at neighborhood meetings. I did it when I worked at the district attorney's office. I did it when I wasn't in office. I did it when I was in office, and I will do it moving forward. I will be out there. But I do see a position that has to have that within their job description of making sure the neighborhood groups are listened to and taken care of, because you know and I know that the mayor can't be everywhere all the time. So it can't fall on deaf ears just because the mayor's not able to hit one meeting or two meetings. There has to be some kind of response. So we just got to make sure that's within someone's job qualifications and someone's job duties, I should say.
Well, you know, and I understand what you're saying, but you made two, I'm going to refer you back to a statement that you made and you just made again. The mayor can't be everywhere all the, you know, every time, and you also said that it's going to, they're there to free up the mayor. So I hear from a lot of people, and I truly believe, because I've dealt with a lot of mayors, and I dealt with mayors when we didn't have all this bureaucracy, and it was far easier. You could walk into the office, you could walk into Connors' office, and you had a direct pipeline, and people were more engaged. You didn't have all these tiers where things get lost in the process. Truly, as I said about Fall River, we've adopted this form of government with cabinets. It's almost like we do have a type E charter, because what I see with mayors now is they are nothing more than figureheads. They are ceremonial mayors because they have everybody to do all their job. You have a financial team to take care of the finances. You have department heads to take care of the departments. You have the city employees to provide services. So what is the mayor's job? The mayor's job used to be the mayor and to be accessible for the people, not to do what job? Your job is to represent, as the mayor, the people of the city of Fall River. So, you know, I see all these positions, and what I see, and it's my personal opinion, and I hear this from a lot of people on the street, that our mayor now, or the last few mayors, like to put on DPW jackets and ride on the plows, or do things like this. Spend our tax dollars, which we won't get the fiscal responsibility, but you know, they see this, it's what does the mayor really do? Think about it. What hands-on kind of nuts and bolts things have we seen a mayor in the past decade actually do in comparison to what used to happen? And you, above all people, should remember a time when you could walk to the city hall, ask for a meeting with the mayor, and get a meeting through the secretary. You didn't have a special assistant, a chief of staff, and a whole bunch of other people. And you're saying to free them up from what? Because what I see, and what most people I talk to see, are basically, they've become professional politicians like they are in Washington. You have an entire staff to do your business, and your job is to solicit funds and get reelected. And that's not what a mayor in a city of the size of Fall River should be. And that's just, you know, where, you know, what I truly believe, and I hear from a lot of people. So,
so I certainly wasn't clear enough if that's what you think I said. So,
no, but you did say, you know, free up the mayor. But
you want to be efficient. So when I say you're going to get a meeting with the mayor, that's not an issue. That's not bumping through 5 people to try to get in there. But when you're in that meeting with constituents or with department heads, with whoever is coming in, and you have other commitments. You want to make sure that people are getting heard. You want to make sure you're as efficient as you can be. It's not to get rid of these meetings so I can have this one, or I can go out and have a sandwich, or I can go out and ride on a DPW truck. It's so we can run efficiently. And I think it takes more than one person to do that. But I also, to your point, I don't think it takes 6 people to do that. So I understand what you're saying, but also hear what I'm saying. It's not something where I want to make sure I have free time. It's that I want to run at 100 miles an hour to make sure that everyone else in the office is running at 100 miles an hour as well.
Yeah, I wasn't directing that to you specifically, obviously, but it's a general question, because what I see, not only in this community, we know the mayor went to Paris and they conferences and stuff like this. This seems to be the new breed of mayors, because Jorge Alorza spent 148 days out of the city of Providence, which is far bigger. And when he was asked about that, he said, so what's the big deal? All I do is pick up the phone and talk to my people, my directors. So why are we paying you the big dollars? Right. If everybody else is doing your job, why should we even have our charter? Why don't we just go to an e-charter? That's what the people want to know, because the e-charter is going to be an issue because of the way this job is being done right now. I think people are having a problem. And that's not you, Kyle. But I
don't take it personally, but I like the back and forth, and I want to be as accessible as I can be. And so I would never say, let's diminish government as much as possible so we're not being efficient with people, taxpayers' money.
Well, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming.